Hello, you guys. Come on in. I'm so excited for this. I can't wait. I can't wait. Okay, so if you are just joining, and if you've never done any type of class with me before, I always just like to check that we can all see, we can all hear. So if you're here, just come over to the little chat box and say like, hi, good morning. You can tell me like where you're listening from today, location-wise, or like maybe where you are in your day. It's all good to hear. I just want to check and make sure it's going and recording. I feel like one of the trickiest parts of doing things like this are just like, we just got to hope that the tech is going to work, you know? It's like we can do all the things and have the best conversation in the world, but if it's not, you know. Okay, great. Okay, perfect. Thanks, guys. Hi, Emily. Hi, Mo. Hi, Leah. Hi, Kristen. Hi, Caitlin. Philadelphia, Chicago. More Chicago, Maryland. Look at all my East Coasters. Love it. I love it. All right, well, give me some patience because just waking things up this morning. Maryland, Portland, Denver, Spokane. Hi, Amanda, Kim, Megan, Kate. Okay, well, I am not one to waste time. You probably all know this if you've done anything with me before. I just want to jump right in because I know that if you are listening to this, if this topic was even interesting to you, I know that you are like one of my people. I'm like, okay, I know we want to like get the most out of our lives. We are all busy people. Most of us are women. I know there's a lot of moms like in my community too. And this topic is so deep and profound, even though it may not even sound like it from the beginning. When we were talking on Instagram stories of like having you guys vote for the next class, this by far was the most voted on topic, and it caught me a little bit by surprise. Like, I'm like, really? Okay, that many people are interested in this. And like, this is so affirming to see all of you here and see all these names come in. And even for those of you watching this later, it's like, this is a topic that I think so many of us as women are just deeply craving, but maybe don't know exactly how to go about this big ideal that we see of like how to get more peace and presence and joy in our life. And I don't just mean like this in like a shallow way. I don't just mean like that you experience that in moments. Of course you do. Hopefully you are all doing that. I mean this as like your way of being, like your way of walking through your normal everyday life that, yes, there are so many things that we cannot control. And like, let's just talk about that first. So many things we cannot control. What other people are doing, what's happening in the world, what's happening in our day, if we have kids, what they're doing, what their moods are. Like, there are so many things that we cannot control, right? But the thing that we can control, right, is how we react to those things and our general energy towards those things. The way that we show up in our life, our reactions to things, how we think about things. Like, there is such a deeper layer to this. And that's what I really want to get into today, is like how to take this feeling that we're probably all craving and wanting a little bit more of in our life, even if we feel like we have it, but like a little bit more of that in our life, of just this like steadiness and this peace and this presence and this feeling that like you can handle anything coming your way. Like, I don't think this is about just positive thinking, you know, and I don't think this is about like spending hours and hours doing like meditation and all of this stuff that you're constantly feeling like you're having to live in this permanent place of like positivity. That's not realistic. Like, there's so many things, again, that happen outside of our control. But I think there are ways to kind of like ease the intensity of maybe the ups and downs that we experience, that we can become a little bit more unaffected by the things that we can't control and focus more of our time and energy into the areas where we can, you know. And I think that that's one thing that you should all know before we jump into this conversation, is that this is something for me that I actively work on probably every single day of my life, like every day of my life, because I have found that my mentality, like how I carry myself, the way I'm thinking, the way I'm kind of looking at things, my response to things, nothing impacts how my life feels more than that. Like, and I used to be the person who was like, 90% of this is food. 90% of this is real food and eating real food. And that's what's going to give you really good energy. And that's what's going to keep you stable and steady. And yes. And then I feel like since also becoming a mom 3 times over, I'm like, okay, yes, it's real food. And also 90% of it is this more internal stuff, your mindset, how you're thinking, what your thoughts are doing, the beliefs you have around those, the stories that we tell ourselves. Nothing impacts how we experience our own life more than those things. And food, it's like this combo. I feel like you do need both in order to experience your life in a more stable, peaceful, present, just like I've got this way. Okay. So the good news is that this is something that I really do think that you can cultivate in your life. I think this is something where you can grow in this area. It's possible. It's possible to change this area if you feel like you're wanting more of it, or you feel like you're really like in a place where you're like, this would be so much nicer to experience my life in this way, like with this framework. So I have to tell you, like, as we jump into things, I am really going to take you through, to me, the things that I have been learning, maybe sometimes the hard way, or things that just keep being presented to me over and over again of like, okay, this is something that's got to shift or got to change. And the number one thing I will just start with is that this is something that you can change. Okay. If you want to put some time and energy into shifting things, but it's going to require being willing to do things a little bit differently, to approach things differently in your life, to think about things differently, to be a little bit more self-aware of what's really going on, like in our inner worlds. So it does take some work. Okay. It's not something that just happens. And I think sometimes we get this sense, or we look at people that have this sort of great outlook or mentality on life, and we think, oh, it just must come naturally. I will be the first to say that I'm like, I have this mentality because I do pour a lot of my time and attention and energy, especially so in the last 10 years, to this. Because again, nothing impacts my day-to-day life, how my life feels, more than this. And working through this stuff of like, how do we actually create more peace and presence and joy in our life? Okay, number one, biggest tip I can give you, it is all about how you are thinking about things. Okay, it's not necessarily the stuff that's happening to you. It is how we think about what's going on in our life. We all have this natural hardwiring. And I think this is like such a relief to hear and understand this part. As humans, we are naturally hardwired in our brains to be like, our brains have this very protective role that they play in our life, which is to help protect us from fear, to be on the defensive, thinking through the worst case scenario. Like literally, I don't know if any of you can relate to this, but like when you wake up in the morning and the first thing, when you open your eyes or you're just kind of stirring, the first thing that probably pops into your mind is something that you have to anxiously anticipate, something you're worrying about, something that is like a worst case scenario, something that you have to be kind of like wake up and you're on the defensive for. That's a natural hardwiring. All of our brains do that. And it's like, again, it's a protective mechanism, because if you think about back in the day where there was probably more just actual physical threats that we had to go through in life, like threats to our safety, threats to our security. Now the threats that come are so much more mental probably than physical for most of us in most of our days. But just knowing that that is normal. It's so normal. I wake up like that every day. There's the first thought I'm like laying in bed and it's like something of like, my brain's scanning for what to be worried about or what to anticipate or what could go wrong. Like even this morning, you guys, I'm laying there and I'm like so excited about today. And this is my favorite thing to talk about and teach. And I wake up and I'm like, what if the tech doesn't work? What if it doesn't record? What if you do? And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's unreal, right? Like it is unreal, the amount of things and ways that our brains are just like all about lack, all about fear, all about scarcity, all about worst case scenario. And knowing that that's normal is like, okay, there's nothing wrong with you. This is literally how our brains are wired. But then you have a choice. Then you have a choice of like, is that what I want? to be focused on? Is that what I want to be looping in my head? Is that what I want to be literally guiding every action that I take in my morning? And I'm getting up and I'm this, and my nervous system's kind of in fight or flight, and I've got cortisol pumping through my body, and now I got to get this, and I'm like going through all the things in my day that have to get done. And what do we have to do to get through the morning, to get the kids to school, to do this? It's like this endless, incessant roll of thoughts, a speeding train, right? And your brain's just trying to help you. And so sometimes I like to see this and like, okay, poor little brain, let's help guide things a little bit more. Like, let's help. We have to start thinking of like, how could that is our natural way of being. But if you let that be the way that you walk through your life, I can tell you one thing, you are not going to feel a lot of presence, peace, or joy. Okay. Like the natural way that most people walk through their days entirely is stressed out, anxious, on edge, numbing, a little bit just mindless, going through the motions. It's like letting those default settings run your entire day. And for so many people, this happens without them realizing it. It's like these conversations, like not even aware of what they're thinking enough to connect. Okay, I'm feeling stressed, but I'm feeling stressed because it's self-induced from these thoughts that are in my head, that just are sort of there when you wake up. And so there's a huge part of this where it's like, you could choose to get on that train and where that train's going to take you. And what that feels like. And what that feels like, that sensation in your body of just like always feeling behind, and you're just kind of like scattered and just all over the place. And it does not feel centered or grounded or like you've got this. Okay. So there's an element of this of like you taking some responsibility, you taking some initiative, you taking some sort of active role as a participant in your own body, in your own life, to be like, okay, this is the natural train. And is that something I want to get on and ride? Or there's another option here. And the other option is something that it's where you get to actively maybe choose a better talk track for your day, for your morning. For this example, right, of like just being in your morning, just trying to wake up and get out of bed, where there are so many thoughts that happen that are just wired in this, again, protective mindset. And we have to be the ones to actively choose to exit that mindset, get off that train and get onto a different train that's going to go to a place that feels a little bit better, and like you think about how most of us are just consumed again by that fear and all the stuff to do and all the things we need to like that's on our plate, and this mental load that we carry and all of the energy going towards that, when there are so many just tiny little moments that if you start to become aware of what you're actually thinking, your thoughts create like 90% of how you feel and how you experience your life is how you're thinking. But it happens so automatically that sometimes we need to even like notice that that's even happening. Okay. So just trying to like sometimes even slow down or become aware. And like at first, when you're starting to do this, trying as best you can not to judge like those thoughts, that they are rooted in fear or lack or negative thinking or worst case scenario or just always on the defensive. You have to start to change like, okay, that's one way to look at it. That's one story to tell. Or what's a different way I could look at this? What's a different thought I could take through my morning instead of this? And I think that in creating a life, again, that feels more intentional, that feels more truly joyful, we have to start to train our brains. Like there's so much time and attention, I think, that we hear about now of like working out your body and like training your body. And like, if you want to be strong, if you want to be healthy, if you want to live a long time and feel really good, you have to be training your body, right? You have to move it. You have to take care of it. There is so much to be said for also our inner world, just as much as the external, for also the mental, not only just the physical. Like we have to train our minds just as much as our bodies. Right? Because that could be something that is just this, again, unconscious these thoughts that just like swirl. We're in swirls. Me and my best friend talk about this a lot of like, okay, you're in a swirl right now. And it just makes it sound so cute, you know, like, oh, it's just a little swirl. I'm just in a little flurry of thought, and let me like redirect how I actually want to be thinking about this. What's the perspective? Instead of lack, how can I see this out of possibility? How can I see this potential? How can I see this situation as it's happening for me instead of to me? Right? There's like this immediate switch that can happen in starting to notice your thoughts and catch them, and then redirect them where you're actually wanting it to go. You know, and if any of you are moms, it's like we're like directing our people and our things. And here, you know, you go here, you're like the CEO of operations. I think so much of creating more intentional life and one that feels better from the inside out is about becoming the CEO of your own thoughts, because your thoughts create feelings and emotions, right? And feelings and emotions then create this response in our body, like of our nervous systems, of like cortisol flooding our veins, and just like, okay, we got to like be on and do this. And again, be on the defensive versus coming into something, being like, okay, this is happening. And then we're going to like, let's choose a different train to get on, you know, this morning. So I think there's so much a part of this where like we have to be an active filter. We have to get aware of what those thoughts are, trying not to judge them, and then try to pick something else, even if it's neutral, even if you're having a negative sort of thought come in or something that your brain is fixating on. And even if you can't get it to go to like, well, this is going to go the best possible way today, you could say to yourself, what's a baby step to that? What if it just goes neutral? What if it just goes like, it's not the best and it's not the worst? What if it just goes? What if it just, you know, it's like our brains don't think of those possibilities. There are those possibilities, but for some reason we get looped in and like convinced that like this is what's going to happen. It's going to be the worst case scenario. It's going to be the worst thing that we're thinking, you know? And I think there's a huge component of this of like, just start there if you are not already doing that and aware. Just become like an observer in your own life of like what the thoughts are going through your head that nobody else sees, right? This is the tricky part about this, is that nobody else sees this. This is like all within our own tiny inner world and inner wiring and inner workings. And I think if you can just start to pay attention to some of those things and just be like, that's interesting that my brain is just going to this worst possible thing, or it's looking for what to worry about. And knowing that you can train it, right? Like you do your body and move it and shift the energy, and you become this like the Jedi master, not only of the physical things in life, like your health and your food and what you're eating, but you become like the Jedi master, the CEO of also what you're thinking. And starting to train your brain and shift it in ways to like actually start to work and be rewired in a way that's going to help you see more possibility, more potential, reach more of those moments of like joy and peace and presence in your life. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's where we have to start. The next layer to this is thinking through, there's thoughts that are those conscious things that we sort of notice and we're like, that's interesting. As you start to notice your thoughts, you will also start to notice like this second layer come in, which is the unconscious thoughts. And like, this is where we get into things like you're thinking certain things, or you have certain patterns around things because you actually have a story that you're telling yourself about it. That's not necessarily true, by the way. It's like not a fact. It's not a proven fact. So sometimes that's like a good way to check this. It's like, why am I thinking that? It's these sort of they're limiting beliefs, they're stories that we tell ourselves. It's just old programming, maybe. It could be from like you had one tiny experience in your life and then your brain kind of like loops onto that of like, well, that's the way it's always going to be. You know, like in like relationships, well, if you had, I don't know, somebody that left a relationship that you were not ready to leave, and then you then start to create this story around it, or there's this like thing, right? This belief that like people always leave. So what's the point of, investing in other people? Or what's the point of that? Or maybe you moved around a lot as a kid. Like there's a lot of millions of tiny examples of this. Like when I like to share a lot is, like I remember this moment in, I think I was like third grade or something. And I heard like another kid say, I think these are the things that literally our brains get formed around sometimes. I heard another kid say like, well, she's not that good at math, and I'm like, And so then it became this thing that like in the future, like, oh, do you want to do a math camp or a math thing? And I would be like, no, because the reason, right, is that I'm like, there was this story that I had around that I wasn't good at. Was I actually not good at math? No. Like if you look at like the report cards or things, I was like, I was totally fine. I was not the best, still am not the best, but like I was fine. But it's like stories that we pick up. So either from other people, maybe it's around like adults in our life, maybe it's stories of like things that we saw going on, and then we made up a story or a reason, or like all the things. It's like we have these thoughts, and repeating thoughts over and over become our beliefs. And yet this is also something we can change. And this is also something where so many people do not realize like the amount of impact that our sort of unconscious mind, the inner workings of our mind, how much it dictates what we say yes to, what we say no to. There can be sometimes like generational patterns and habits of like, this is just what you saw, and this is what you saw is normal. So now you take that into your own life and you think that's the way it is, when it's not. It's not true, and it's not the only way. It's like kind of becoming aware of like, oh, where did you pick up this stuff? And I think most people have, you know, 1 or 2 or 3 different areas where this tends to repeat a lot, or like where these like stories and limiting beliefs start to like really show, whether that's in your career, or maybe it's motherhood, or maybe it's in stuff with your health, or like there are so many juicy parts to this that if we can start to even become like a tiny bit more aware of, okay, well, this is like, it's like what, it's not the things that are happening, but it's like the meaning that you're giving to it. The meaning that you're making out of something that could be totally just neutral, but in your mind, there's like a story around it, or something that's a belief, but it's a belief that's in lack, or it's a belief that's limited or trying to keep you small. And I think this is like for women, like what I see so much of is like areas of like, a lot of people will be like, well, I don't have any of that. I don't have limiting beliefs. That we all do. We do. It can show up in your life as self-sabotage. So like even in the context of trying to eat healthier, it's like, okay, I've learned all the things I know about real food, Sarah. I know about, you know, like this. But if you have stories or beliefs or limiting beliefs around like, this isn't possible for me because I've tried everything else and nothing else has seemed to work, that's a mentality. That's a limiting belief that like, if your body believes that, then it's going to be very hard to actually get the end result that you want. So many of us have these things like, you know, self-sabotage, like, okay, I'm doing really well. And that feels uncomfortable now in my body. And then I'm going to do something that kind of takes me out of that really good energy because it feels uncomfortable to be there because I've never experienced it before. And it's, again, this subconscious programming of like, what do we think that we are worthy of? Or what do we think that is possible for us? So there's a lot, I feel like, wrapped up in that. Another thing to kind of like be on the lookout for is any areas of like perfectionism. So this can be really sneaky, of almost like these thoughts that's like, okay, if you know that you're wanting to move or maybe take a morning walk, or, you know, like just get your body moving more. And then you'll do great for like a day or two. And then all of a sudden you have this thought or moment. It's like, well, today's really busy, or I slept in, or something else happened. And now I don't have the full 30 minutes or the full hour to go do this. So then what's the point of doing anything at all? Right? That's a limiting belief right there. It's like, well, what's the point? It doesn't count. It's not perfect. So it doesn't count. So it doesn't matter. So like, what's the point of doing anything? So a lot of that, like all or nothing thinking, the perfection thinking, a lot of things like around control. Like if it doesn't look exactly like this, then like might as well not just do it. When all of those things are a lie, you know, that's not actually true. The actual truth is that you showing up for yourself in any way, in any amount of time, even if it's 1 minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, and you get yourself outside and you breathe air into your body for 5 minutes, that is going to change your energy. That is going to change how your body feels. It is going to change so much, but yet we convince ourselves all these reasons why it won't work, why it's not perfect, why it's like, why it doesn't count. Okay. So like, that's where we start to see some of these things of like, okay, are there moments like that where what you're thinking is creating the results in your life? And so it's getting aware of what those things are and what are the stories that you tell yourself? What are the ways that you block yourself or stop yourself before you even get started? I think it's especially apparent when it's like you're trying to do something that you know is good for yourself. So like the easiest example I have is something for your health, to be healthier, and how many ways we get in our own way around it, you know, of whether it's a conversation of worth or it's a conversation of like, I can't be perfect at it, so what's the point of trying? Sometimes even like comparison, where we're like, well, they have this thing that I want, but like they have it and I don't. And we create this disparity between like, well, they're worthy of it and I'm not, which is, again, it's a total lie. And so it's starting to catch yourself and requires such like transparent honesty with yourself and catching yourself in these stories, in these beliefs that maybe at one point served you or protected you in some way. And you can say, thank you for that. But then also like, let's move on and move forward, especially if, again, the way that you're wanting to feel in your life is not stuck in those, like not weighed down with all of that kind of extra, it's baggage. It's like mental baggage, and it's a heavy load that so many of us carry. So I think there's like the thoughts that come just in everyday life, right? Of like waking up in the morning and like, interesting, goes to the worst possible thing. And then there's also this underlying layer of things. If you're like, okay, I'm saying that I want this thing. I'm saying that I want to be a person who does this, or a person who shows up in my life like this, and yet something is getting in the way. Something stops me. Something, I come out with all this energy and I feel great about my new plan, and then it just sort of peters out. It's like, this is the stuff that does get in the way. And any amount of time that you can pour into getting to know yourself and these little intricacies about your inner world will change how you feel, will change your energy, will change your mood, will change like this. It's a sense of like lightness, that you're not letting those things dictate your life anymore. And this is something that like, it's not overnight, right? This is like a slow practice. It's a slow kind of awareness. This is like over the course of, weeks and months and even like years. Can you think or even imagine, like at this point next year, if you were just to start becoming a little bit more of your thoughts and how to shift them, a little bit more of like some of these limiting beliefs and slowly dismantling them so that you can actually move forward in your life in ways that you want to, in ways that you dream about, like you becoming the type of person, putting on a new identity of like, I am a person who does this. I'm not going to let these like silly stories or beliefs or things that have stopped me in the past. Like, that's how you see real change in your life. That's how you become the type of person, right, who creates the life that they want. And I think there's a huge distinction here of like we get to choose. Like you don't have to, of course, but like you get to choose. Like there's going to be an operating system placed on you, whether that's like our hardwiring and the external world, of things to be fearful about, things to be stressed about, things to just like that really bring down your energy and your vibration and keep you in that like lack and scarcity and fear. Or you get this choice of like, do I want to do things a different way? Do I want to do things different than the status quo? Okay, because so many people are living on autopilot and they're on edge and they're anxious and they're resentful and scattered and kind of quick fix energy and just like going through the motions. You don't have to do that. It's a choice, right? It takes a little bit of an intention and it takes a little bit of awareness, but once you do and you start to learn almost how to work out your mind, just the same way that you're working out your body, it's this massive shift that starts to happen, right? And that is what enables the feeling of peace, that feeling of more presence that you can get out of your mind. Like so much of presence, I think, is being able to get out of your mind and the swirling thoughts and the limiting beliefs and the emotions, and you like sink back into your body. of like, what do you see and feel and smell? And it's like getting back into five senses, like sinking into your physical body, which is so hard as busy women. Like so many of us have these elements of like, you know, perfectionism and just like overly operating on everything. You're over functioning on everything. You're doing everything for everyone. And like, there's just very little time and energy. You're just like one thing to the next and following the to-do list. And it's this very, it's a very masculine energy, right? Of like, you're just doing and achieving and oriented. And like, that is what is prized in our culture. That is like the status quo of like, you are thriving in life. You are getting so much done. You're going through your to-do list. You're so productive. You achieve everything. But it also comes with this flip side of like people pleasing and energy draining and just going through the motions, living only in your head and achievement oriented versus like what feels good in your body. And there's a really big difference between the two. So in the process of like, yes, this is something that I want, right? This is something I'm wanting to like work on and really start to shift and change in my own life. The joy piece, I think, comes from the sense of peace and presence and steadiness that comes from when your mind is able to be a little bit more shaped, filtered, guided, right, into the vibe and the feeling of what you want in your life. Joy comes from slowing down enough to notice the things around you. Like the only way to start working on some of these, the thoughts, right, in our mind and how they create the feelings and emotions in our body and how that dictates what our nervous system is doing and the hormones that are secreted into fight or flight. And then it becomes this cycle. The only way to break that cycle is like slowing down enough to notice your thoughts, slowing down enough to question them, slowing down enough to like reroute them. Like, what is a higher vibrational thought? What's a higher level I can take here versus getting stuck and cycled over and over again in the swirl, the cute little swirl, right? You want to exit the swirl and go to like a much better place that's actually more productive and helps us grow more as humans. If we can like start to get curious about some of these things and like look at these like blocks and limiting beliefs that we have, like the world opens up. So slowing down enough like means not living in fight or flight, not saying that you're too busy because you're committing to too many things because you're people pleasing and you're afraid to disappoint people or what people think of you. Like it's all wrapped up in this. It's like kind of slowing down enough to be like, why am I doing that? Why was my reaction to that way? Why is that the first thought that I'm immediately thinking? Interesting. You know, like, okay, I'm trying not to judge myself. Like, that's just interesting that my brain goes there. But like slowing your life down, which is so, again, opposite the status quo. If we are like prized and rewarded for being the most productive, doing the most, then the act of slowing down is like a very rebellious act on its own of like just starting to focus on like, what is the most important to me? What are the most important areas of my life that I want to be pouring time and attention into? Do I want the world to be giving me the operating system, or do I want to create it out of my own values and what I think is most important? And the time and putting the time and energy into the areas of your life that matter the most to you. Not what everyone else says that you should be doing, not what the world says you should be doing or paying attention to, but it's like a very distinct choice. And it's something where, you know, like, okay, like in that process of slowing down, yes, it means saying no to some things probably. It means refusing to let your brain go on that crazy train, the spirals and the swirls. It means like let's just slow it down, take a pause, take a break. Where am I at? What's the big picture here? What's actually important to me? do I want to be thinking like this? Do I want to spend my time and energy on this? Or what would be a more helpful, productive, higher vibrational thing to be focused on, in this moment? So I think that so much of this, right, is a choice. And even from like a tiny example of, right, like I talked about this in one of the podcasts I did about just like daily joys. Like joy comes in your life from slowing down enough to notice the small things around you. That instead of being geared in lack and fear and scarcity and all the things that are not going right, all the things to anticipate, can you turn your attention into what is right in front of you? Quieting those voices, quieting the chaos, quieting the noise, whether that's from scrolling your phone or it's a news feed or it's like stuff going on that you can't control, and quieting that. Saying, what is right in front of me? What's happening like around me? What can I really take in more? And pay attention to those little things and not get sucked up into the urgency, someone else's urgency, newsfeed urgency, chaos in our minds, urgency, fake urgency, right? And starting to become like a better owner and CEO of your body, of your thoughts, of where you're putting your time and energy. So I was saying in that podcast that like, in order to notice little daily joys, it starts in a shift from your thoughts. So you could come in, like I came in the other day from my walk in the morning, and, I'm like, the house is crazy. The kids are up, they're eating breakfast, they're getting ready for school. There's 2 different audio stories that are on and, things happening. And like, I could walk into that. And then probably the normal default setting of walking into that would be like, oh my gosh, it's so loud in here. It's crazy. It's just overstimulating. This is like too much for me, for my, my energy. I'm like it calm and peaceful. Okay. So I could either let that thought run of like, this is overstimulating. This is too much. This is, I'm being like flooded. This is what's happening. This is chaotic. It's crazy. Or I'm like, does that help me? Does that make me feel I'm wanting to feel in my life? If that's the thing I'm focusing on, can I shift my focus right now of like, look at this full house. Look at this full house of just like love and joy and kid craziness. And like, what a gift. Like, honestly, what a gift this is. Like that I get to witness and experience this commotion, this noise. Like this is something that I will probably miss at later stages in my life. So instead of saying it's like crazy, it's too busy, it's full, like so much power comes in our words and how we're describing things, whether it's to others or to ourselves. So I will never say, you will not ever hear me say like, whoa, it's busy. Whoa, we're just doing a lot. I'm like, yeah, it's full. Life is full. And it's full of energy and it's full of love and it's full of craziness and it's messy and it's funny, but like, man, that's what it feels like to feel alive. I'm like, that actually feels good. Like same scenario, 2 entirely different ways that you're framing it in your mind. Okay, so it's not just like, oh, I'm just going to choose the positive all the time, but it's like, no, I could choose to see it this way, which is the natural wiring, or I don't really like where that puts me in the end. I don't like the mood that puts me in. I don't like the feel or sense I have. Like, no. What if I phrase it this way? Like branding is everything, even to yourself. My life is full. It is alive. It is, wonderful. It's beautifully just messy. And I'm like, yes. And like, I am here for it. I can handle this. This is kind of awesome, and it's kind of funny. So there's millions of examples like that every single day, right? Where we have this choice. Like, can I see what's right in front of me? Can I see it in a different lens, or can I choose a different way to think about it? And sometimes that's really hard for our brains, because if you have not ever been aware of this or not been practicing this, it's like, it feels so like foreign to your body to be even trying to do that. It's like trying to reach for a higher thought. What would that be like? And that's very normal. So just know that at first, if you like, as you're going into your lives this week, playing and experimenting with that, so normal. Like, stay with it. There could be a limiting belief around like, I don't know how to do this well. This is like dumb. I'm just not going to pay attention. I'm just not doing. That's actually example of exactly what we're talking about, right? Like this is for you. This can be for you. And I just find that like it's the people who are willing to work and pay attention and like these tiny, tiny micro shifts hundreds of times throughout your day, that the energy that you have, that people feel from you, that you like bring into your life in every area of life that matters to you, every bucket of life, it changes when this inner part changes, because it dictates so much. It's like literally dictates 90% of how you feel and experience your life is dictated by the thoughts that you think. Because again, those create the emotions that you feel in your body. And then those emotions like gets our nervous system going one way or another, calm or like on edge, you know, looking for the bear, or looking things to be worried about, or like, okay, this is how I'm going to choose to view this. I mean, this is how I'm going to actively choose how to think about this. But we have to be willing to think differently if we want to feel differently in our lives, right? And can you see that like this is not about being perfect? We all have thoughts, and I do all the time, of like less than ideal, and I don't beat myself up for it. I'm just like, that's interesting. There must mean there's something deeper there. You know, there must mean like, why do I think that way? Like, where does that come from? Where did I see that modeled? Where does that, you know, and like just getting curious and learning yourself better. And not just like going through your day and your life just on autopilot. Because I have a feeling like if this topic even interests you, you like don't want to be in that autopilot feeling in your life. Like knowing that there's something more, and maybe you're like looking at other people and like, how are they happy? How are they like not really stressed by a lot in their life? How are they like, how have they kind of grown their capacity where they seem like they can handle more? They seem like they're more resilient. They seem like they bounce back from things. They seem like they like, okay, like it's not all Pollyanna. It's not all these just like only positive things happen. It's like things happen, ups, downs, everything, like things you can't predict, things you can't control. But the things that you can control, taking a little bit more ownership in that part of your life enables you to handle things in the external world so much better. And with this sense of peace and steadiness and ease of like, okay, I've got this. I understand myself. I know how to hold myself. I know how to guide myself. I know how to shift the energy. I know how to become like the CEO master of my energy and of my thoughts. And that creates so much in my physical life of what I experience and what I feel. And I think like a huge part of this is like you have to be willing to be like not the norm in this way, like operating in a slightly different way, of like learning not only the way that you operate, but then like what are you intentionally feeding yourself? How are you, if you know like the ways that we are like the pre-routed grooves in our brain and our pre-routed reactions and the beliefs and stories, what ways are you coming into your life and feeding your mind, taking care of your mind, helping it like stay lifted and focused in the energy of what you want? Like, again, there's so much talk about feeding your body, but what are you feeding your mind? Whether that's like in your life, who are you following on social media? What things are you intaking in your life? Whether that's food or other people's energy or its emotions, like what are you taking in? What are you holding? What are you carrying? What are you feeding yourself? What are you feeding your mind? And it's such like again, this is like not an overnight thing. And to me, this has been like the best thing that in the Insiders Club, this group I started in February, was like all based on these ideas that like we all want life to be feeling a little bit better and to grow our capacity to hold and handle more in our life. and take a little bit more ownership, right, of how we think and how we're showing up. But the trickiest part about it is like the world pulls you in the opposite direction. It's like this constant sort of tension of like the way the world wants you to be, the way that's socially appropriate or norms or the things that we get rewarded for are pulling at the opposite direction of like how we actually want to be and feel. And so being in like the people who I've seen who have the most progress in this area and like the most growth in this area start to feed themselves better, and they surround themselves with people who are also like-minded, who are also aware, right, of their thoughts and their energy and their mindset and this like inner world. They are constantly working on it. And so in the Insiders Club, like that's really where it came from. It's like a place. I'm like, I want a place where we can like talk about these things that are actually deep and meaningful, and talking about mindset and inner world workings and all the limiting beliefs and the stories we tell and how much that impacts our daily life. So we talk about things like it's wild the amount of things that we cover in that group, from like motherhood to business ideas to career choices to relationships, like to health and wellness. It's like this inner group of women who have realized that if they are going to be spending time, right, like helping themselves get better, helping their lives feel better, if they spend it working on those inner workings, like everything else feels like it gets easier. And so being in community with other people who are also aware of this stuff and also kind of working this, like people bring questions to that group. We meet every other week. It's like live coaching and in a group setting, but it's like half the price of being like working together one-on-one. And all of the work that I do one-on-one is on this stuff, like limiting beliefs and mindset and what's going on, really like how we're thinking about things changes how we experience it. So if we know that to be true in a group setting, it's amazing because it's like, again, questions about motherhood or career, like she's like, it's this, but like, how can I think about this differently? You know, like what would be some different ways to do this? Or like, I'm catching myself and it's this story that I'm telling myself around this. And we kind of like work through this, but it's wild how many areas of our life that this inner game and this mindset stuff touches. And so it's like one of the reasons that I love that group so deeply. And something that we're going to do, especially for those of you who are on this call and are interested in this stuff, is that for our next call is on Tuesday. That until Tuesday, if we're opening up another few spots in this group, and it's not for everybody, but if this is like this type of stuff interests you and you're like, yeah, I can see like where it starts to really impact your life in like such a bigger ways. We're going to do a little special where I feel like at this point, because we've been doing it since February, have all of these weekly calls of like, this is like a full mindset program. What we have talked, like how to actually train your mind, how to train your thoughts, how to become like a better like owner and filter for what's going on in your life, and the things you let ride and expand in your life, and the things that maybe in the past have like kept you stuck or playing small or just not fully living out your life in the way that you want to. Right? If that stuff is like interesting to you, we're going to do a special little deal until next Tuesday and opening up a few extra spots in that group, because it's just such a magical container. If this feels like this is the right time, this is the right season, knowing there is no right time or right season, that's a limiting belief. You know, it's like we come up with all the reasons why it won't work. But if this stuff calls to you, I would really encourage you to check that out, because we're going to go through like a lot of this stuff, and you get coaching and you get this kind of like special time and intention. It's just been one of the most magical groups and magical things that I've ever done, because it's all along these same topics. So if that's something interesting to you, I'll send out the details on that later. But I just want to encourage you that like, this is something that can really change your life. Like any time and energy that you are spending getting curious about the way that you are wired ends up paying tenfold back in your life. Again, like in relationships, in work, maybe it's motherhood, or it is in an area of your life, maybe it's your health, right? That once you start to unblock some of these things that are our own makings, we are the ones putting up our own blocks. Once you learn how to like dismantle some of those and choose a different way to be, choose a different way to focus, the amount that frees up in your mental space and capacity is just wild. So I want you to know and like think to yourself, like, where am I at today with these? Like, is this something where I'm just wanting to start to pay attention to what those thoughts are and then like what the implications are or how that's trickling down into my life? Am I at the point where I'm pretty aware of my thoughts? I can catch and redirect in the moment, but maybe there's some underlying limiting beliefs or stories that you're telling yourself around it. Like, what are you making it mean? It's always like such a good question. What are you making it mean? There's something that happens in life. What are you making it mean to you? Or maybe it's this underlying of that, even of like the concept of just slowing down in your life enough to notice thoughts, enough to pick up on stories or meaning that you're making things. And like the act of slowing down and getting more present and like not letting your body just live in fight or flight mode all the time. I feel like most women do this. It's this act of rebellion of like, no, all these things are being put on my plate as urgent, or like the thoughts or the way to think about things or the way my brain's naturally wired. But I am going to actively like choose something else, a different way to focus my time and energy. Again, like opens up so much time, so much more time to notice things in your life. If you're wanting to call in more of that joy and that peace and that presence and that steadiness, it requires like getting quiet. It requires learning to not take on the noise and like let it take you through the day, right? But like notice it's going on, okay, but also my inner world is different than the external world. And what can I control here? I think those are all really good places to start, like knowing again, like how our brains, whatever we focus on, that's what ends up expanding in our life. That's how we feel. So if you know that your brain works that way, you can focus on, again, the way it's hardwired, the lack, the fear, the limits, all the reasons why not, all the reasons to stress out, all the reasons that's going to go the worst way, or trying to sink again back into your body and out of your mind and say, what is actually important to me in this moment? It's like, I feel like it's like I'm just thinking of examples just in my day-to-day life of like, it could be that every day as I'm getting my kids ready for school, walking my daughter to school, that like the natural way that I would be wired would be to be constantly thinking of like, okay, what's next? Okay, so we've got going through the checklist. Okay, we've got all the things. Okay, ready to go. We got this. But then like on the walk to school, like would be like, okay, and then after this, and after drop off, I'm going to do that. And then this, and then I got this done today. And then what about that? And okay, what that goes the possible way? And like, it would literally be this full blown conversation in my own mind. Or I'm like, okay, that's happening. But like right now, what's most important to me is being with my 4-year-old daughter who wants to hold my hand and wants to sing a Disney song on the way to school. And like, can I drop into that moment and separate myself from the chaos, the noise, the commotion, where my brain wants to go, the external world, all of that, and say like, that's there. But right now, I want to be here. I want to feel like her little hand in mine. You know, I want to like be sort of ridiculous, like singing Beauty and the Beast on our way to school. And like, that's the energy that I want to take into my life. Like, I know that she can feel when I am stressed out and when I'm going through the list and when I'm kind of pushing her and I'm in a rush. I'm like, in a rush to go where? Today I had that thought. She wanted to stop and like swing on this swing. And I'm like, the first thing my brain goes to is like, going to be late. I'm like, she's in preschool. If she's 2 minutes late, 5 minutes late, does that really matter? Okay, but we all do that. Like, think about this in the context of yourself or like your daily life. Like, how often do we do things where we get all wrapped up like in this story or thing or urgency? It's like fake urgency. Like, where's the bear and the tiger? I just created something to be like stressed about. Like, this is not really the thing to be stressed about in this moment. But like, it's a million moments like that where like you are like choosing to stop. I want to drop in my body. I want to notice things. I want to pay attention to the good, and knowing that the more I pay attention to those things, it like grows. It changes how you are wired, which changes how you operate. Right? So if any of this is sounding, you're like, yes, I totally understand what you're saying. Like, this is making sense. And this is like definitely something that I would like to be working on in my life. I really would invite you with open arms to think about joining the Insiders Club. It's a small, intimate group. It is like getting coaching with me one-on-one, but at like a fraction of the price. We do it monthly. You can come just try it out just for a month. We meet every other week. People get to submit their questions. Like, we talk about all the real life stuff. Whereas like sometimes I think people think, and they're looking in of like the things I talk about on Instagram or stories I saw, like, oh, you must have it all figured out. Like, I don't have it all figured out, but like, I have noticed that this one area and this topic is the thing that has changed my life the most. This is like where I feel like my nervous system has changed. My energy has changed. My ability to like drop into like, where do I want my brain to go in this moment? What do I want to be focused on in this moment? Like that presence, which enables the joy, right? Which enables the sense of peace, the ability to like almost like block out all this other stuff that gets put on us, especially as women. It's a superpower, I think, to be able to like, know what's in front of me, what matters, what do I care about, what are my values, what are my priorities right now? It's not going to be everything at once. So like, what is it right now in this moment? And the more choices that you make that align to the person of who you want to become, the type of person you want to become, the better your life feels. That like life is not happening to you. You are actively creating it. It is a life by design and not by default. I feel like the most joy comes there, the most happiness comes there, the most presence comes there, the most juiciness and aliveness in life comes there. And it is something you can learn. It is something you can access. It is something that you can like choose in tiny steps. And even if you feel like the Insiders Club is not for you right now, take action in some way, because I think you will find like any bits of momentum and action that you pour into this part of your life ends up serving you tenfold, serves you in the moment, changes your thoughts, it changes your energy, it changes your mood, it changes how you approach life, it changes your mentality, it changes your mindset, it changes how you interact with others, it changes how others feel around you. But it has to start from this like inside game. And you have to surround yourself with other people who are also doing this. Otherwise, the world pulls you every direction other than this, other than presence and joy and like good energy in your life. We have to actively choose it and actively engage with it and actively surround ourselves with people and things and energy that help us live better, healthier lives, that help us live more intentionally and not just in these like default settings that we know don't feel good, right? We know that's not the vibe that we're going for. And so it's an active choice. It's something that you can start at any time, at any day, but knowing that life will always pull you off. Circumstances will suck you out of this. So it's like the constant reminders. I feel like that has been the biggest gift of doing the Insiders Club, is just like this reminder, like every other week, that like we're all human. We're all figuring this out. We all have so many different situations that we're navigating and thinking about, and things that happen in life, and big transitions in life, and big stages of growth. And it's like, we're like, whoa, it just feels like there's so much. But if you can come back and learn like these practices and habits and these rituals and questions to ask yourself and ways that you can immediately shift your energy, like that changes your life. Like that changes your life and how your life feels to you. To me, it's been the biggest gift I have ever given myself. is learning this and learning these different ways to shift how I'm feeling and how I want my life to feel and look like. It changes everything. That's why I feel so passionate about teaching and coaching in it, because it's like food, yes, that will always be like a foundation and a thing that like we need to pay attention to. But then there's this huge piece that feels like nobody's talking about. And like, I'm talking about like the nitty gritty, the tangible, like the questions, the pauses, like how you actually do this in your day-to-day life is all about what the Insiders Club is. So if that interests you at all, let me know. I can send an email out with all the details for until our next call in the Insiders Club, which is Tuesday. So for the next couple of days, if you decide that you join, we have a really fun bonus, which is going to give you almost all the inner workings of my mindset program, which will be for sale at some point later this year, but going to be a lot more expensive than just trying it out in the Insiders Club. So we have all these, all the previous calls where we're talking through like all of the foundations and what to pay attention to and how you just like really get started in this process. Has been just like a joy for me to be teaching about and talking about more. And I just think that any amount of time that we're spending being more intentional in our lives, like it comes back to serve us in so many ways and serve the people around us, right? And just really make the time that we have feel the best that it can possibly feel. And knowing that there is so much that we can control. All of you control freaks like me that I'm constantly working on. Like it's just this kind of like really peaceful feeling to be like, I know that I trust myself. I know that I can navigate anything. I know that I can reframe this. I know that I can work through this. I know that I, can trust my gut and I trust the timing on things. I know that things are happening for me. And I know that I can change even how my nervous system is feeling and firing and wiring. And that changes everything about my hormones and my physical body and how I'm sleeping and my energy and mood. It's like, it's all connected. So no matter what you do, my hope for you is that you do something in this area. If this is something that you're wanting, like these feelings, and you're wanting your life to feel peace, presence, joy, all of it, all of the juiciness and goodness, like know that it is available for you and it is possible, and that it takes a little bit of retraining and reframing and just awareness and kind of playing with, but it is possible. And to me, again, it's been the biggest gift of my life. And it's something that I want to share with you. So I hope that this is inspiring you to like really think through some of these things and just to become aware in your own life and create a more intentional life and create a healthier life, like in all senses of the word, physically, mentally, emotionally. It's all connected. And any amount of time and energy that you spend becoming the person that you are wanting to be, the person that you know that you are, the person that you can probably feel, like when you close your eyes and you have this like vision for your life and what it feels like from the inside, what it feels like from the outside, like that. So much of that happens when we show up for ourselves in this way and like get to know ourselves better inside and out. Okay. Does anyone have questions on that or anything like to clarify any other things? I bet that like you will start to go through your day now and start to be kind of like looking for things and examples of like, oh, this is an example of what she was talking about. And just seeing how many times a day it happens is wild. It's wild once you start becoming aware of it. And then it's encouraging because you're like, wow, there's like hundreds of times during the day that I could like choose a different story here, And it's really, I think it's such an empowering way to live, right? A little bit more actively in your life instead of just having something placed on you, an operating system placed on you, no matter what. It's going to happen. Like there's an operating system, no matter what. It's either placed on you or like you get to choose it. So it's up to us in that way. Any questions? For those of you who are watching the replay of this later, if you do have questions and have things you want to ask or clarify, you can always email me at hello@simplyrealhealth.com. or send me a message too on Instagram at Simply Real Health. I'm happy to chat about anything more, but I hope that you all go out into your day and into your weeks, into your lives, feeling like you could do this, and just that awareness that you deserve this. You deserve to get to know yourself even deeper, even better, and how many ways your life will start to light up because of it. I love you guys so much. Let me know if you think of other questions and things, and I will send out that email after for any of you thinking about Insiders Club, or if you have questions on it, just let me know. It's been one of the most magical experiences of my life, and favorite thing that I've probably ever created. Like, you can just imagine, like, we meet like this every other week. I teach on a topic, we take questions, we kind of problem solve things together. Everyone's aware of this concept of like, this is it's how we're thinking that creates like 90% of how we feel in our life. Yeah. I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for being here. Mwah. I make it a great week.